I've always had a passion for big fish. There's just something special about the added challenge of hunting giants. It's a puzzle in which all of the pieces are of the utmost importance. The risks are higher, the costs are greater, but the payoff is second to none. Since my original alligator gar trip in 2014, the next piece to my angling puzzle was always the white sturgeon. After years of putting it off for one reason or another, it was finally my time to pursue America's largest freshwater fish. I'm Master Angler Josh Dolan, a dedicated and hardcore big fish hunter. I travel and explore waters far and wide, devoting my life to the adventures and thrill of chasing the true giants that swim. I've spent the last decade fishing hard to learn the ways of these monster fish, and I'm here to share my experiences with you. Join in my journey as I go to the extremes to hunt down, capture, and film the largest fish that each species has to offer. This is Have Rods, Will Travel. This trip will take me the farthest from my home that I have ever been with rod and reel in hand, to the land of sugar beets and potatoes, where there are more cattle than people and real cowboys still exist. The landscape looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. You could have told me that I was on Mars and I wouldn't have known any different. Dry, desolate ground as far as the eye can see, scattered with the odd patch of sagebrush or a lone tumbleweed bouncing across the blacktop extending to the horizon. If you didn't know any better, you'd swear there wasn't any water here at all, let alone fish. And yet, if you drive far enough, out of nowhere you will come to the edge of one of the most miraculous sights your eyes could ever behold. A giant crack in the crust of the earth. Within the bottom lies an emerald green highway cutting through shades of browns and yellows. This crack in the earth was formed over millions of years by the ever-present flow of deep swirling water. Out here in the middle of nowhere lies the only water for miles in any direction, and it only makes perfect sense that a fish so large and so mysterious resides in a place that is so wild. We started our first morning on the water during one of the coldest days of the year up until that point. When I left my home in Virginia the day before, it was a balmy 97 degrees. As we dunked our kayaks into the Snake River for the first time, we were met with a frigid 13-degree day. I would be teaming up with my friend Steve Carroll of Caldwell, Idaho for the next few days. Steve is a fellow kayak fisherman and has a claim to fame with many trophy white sturgeon caught from the kayak. Our first objective of the trip was to capture bait. Sturgeon will eat many different types of fish. However, with the overall abundance of rainbow trout in the section of the Snake we were in, we chose to target them primarily. I've caught many rainbow trout in the streams and rivers of the Blue Ridge Mountains back home. However, I rarely see the numbers and larger overall size like what we ran into on the Snake. Although our target were the freshwater giants of fame, we couldn't help but get sidetracked by the simple joy of whacking on some over-eager rainbows.
Josh, look at that one.
Can't tell yet. It's kind of funny how easily we can lose perspective. In Virginia, fish like these would be superb catches, and ones that I would take the time to get proper photos with. However, when your target is 8 and 9 foot giants, these fish are nothing more than literal meal tickets for a hungry dinosaur. It was a bit strange to be chunking up these trout into cut bait, but in the end, I'm thankful for its sacrifice. After catching our bait, we posted up at our first spot. It wasn't long before things got interesting. Oh yeah, fish Oh yeah. Oh,
God. Yeah!
After a brief 15-minute battle, Steve had our first sturgeon of the trip beside the boat.
It's pretty close.
And after years of seeing pictures and videos of them online, I had my first face-to-face encounter with a true living fossil. We admired the prehistoric-looking creature for only a few seconds, just long enough to snap a couple of photos before she was sent back down to the bottom from which she came.
Yeah!
That's sick.
Awesome.
Fishing has taken me to some pretty incredible places, but after my first day in the high desert of Idaho, I don't think I've ever been to a place that speaks to my soul as an angler quite so perfectly. Giant fish living in an expansive environment. It doesn't take much to imagine how this place was a few hundred or even a few thousand years ago. We began our next day on the road. Idaho is a wide open place. The river is fairly accessible in this part of the state, but that doesn't mean you don't have to travel to get there. The horizon is comprised of mountains in every direction, but for the most part, central Idaho is relatively flat, with the odd rock outcropping breaking up the landscape. The roads are long and straight, cutting through barren desert as far as the eye can see. The only thing breaking up the endless sagebrush is the bright green farms supplying this nation with food. Your only contact with other humans comes from the small, crossroad communities every few dozen miles, some of which have the best breakfast you could ever imagine, even from a small, unassuming gas station. Rigging for these giants is unlike anything I've ever done before. Fast current, large bait, and deep water makes for a combination of some of the heaviest tackle you'll ever see in fresh water.
So for the most part, this is the Sturgeon rig. You have a sinker slider attached to a dropper leader to a weight of your choosing. Here we're using cannonball because we've got cobble on the bottom and this will hold a lot better. Has to be 10 pounds lighter than your main line. This is 50, this is 40. Go to 100-pound swivel, some Dacron leader, and a 10-aught hook. So we've been missing a couple of bites. We just want to downsize that hook a little bit. We think these are more around the 6-foot range. With this 10-aught, we're going to replace it with an 8-aught. Now, one of the reasons why we use a surgeon's loop at this connection point is it allows us to quickly change leaders without having to bust knots. We've got a 130-pound Dacron leader here, and we've got an 8-aught Gamakatsu circle hook with the barb pinched down. That's super important. And we're going to do what's called a no knot snell knot. You take the leader, you come through the front of the hook, come back through the front of the hook, and you're left with that tag just like that. You want to leave that tag laying against the shank of the hook. Now you've got your tight end and your mobile end. You want to take the tight end here and you want to wrap that around the shank and the tag 6 or 7 times. Just like that. Now you pull it semi-tight, grab this tag, and just cinch it down. And there we go. So there's your no knot snell knot. And to finish this out, we're gonna take about 2 feet of leader, and then we're just gonna do 2 to 3 overhand knots. So you create a bite in the line. One, two, cinch it down. And that's what you're left with. So now you can take this leader right here, take this swivel, feed the loop through the swivel, feed the hook through that, and now you're good to go. So here on the snake, this is a juvenile sturgeon. You can tell it's been hatchery raised because of the pectoral fins, how they're all rubbed down raw from swimming around in concrete pens. But they're really sharp when they're this young. You want to keep them in the water, and you can definitely begin to feel how sharp those spines are. Those scoots is what they're called. When they're young, they're really sharp, but as they get older, they get worn down. They've got these sucker mouths that you can see here, and they just vacuum stuff up off the bottom. Let's see. They got this giant, there it goes, mouth that'll extend out quite a ways. But they also have these little barbells. See if you can zoom in on them. That's how they taste their food, just kind of like a catfish. Just hovering over the bottom, tasting stuff with their barbells. If they like it, they'll commit to it and suck it in. I'm gonna go ahead and let this little guy go. I'll turn him over. Away he goes.
After soaking baits the entire second day, with not much to show for it other than a small juvenile sturgeon, we began our final day feeling the pressure to accomplish our goal. Though stressing to hunt down a giant, we took on the challenge with confidence. We fished hard the entire day and had our chance to dance with a dinosaur as the sun began to set on the last hour of my Idaho adventure. Oh, no, I'm on, dude. Yeah. I don't think it's a big one, though. Maybe you were right.
Yeah!
A tank, dude. Oh! The battle lasted the better part of 25 minutes, her hydrodynamic body darting in and out of the heavy current, fighting hard 30 foot below the surface. I put as much pressure on her as humanly possible, and she matched it with a valiant effort. But in the end, our determination paid off, even though she had both Steve and I huffing and puffing for oxygen once the fight was done. This is what we came for. Fought her out of the kayak, America's largest freshwater fish, an absolute insane beast of a fish. I've caught alligator gar, I've been to Texas, but nothing comes close to these behemoth Idaho white sturgeon. This girl right here is 96.5 inches by 37.5 inches around. We're using barbless hooks, so as soon as I pop this hook and point her head back towards the water, she's out of here, never to be seen again. So I'm gonna flip her over real quick. She's got that chunk right in her lips right here. We're using rainbow trout as bait. You can see how easy this hook's just gonna pop right out. That's it. That's all that was holding this behemoth fish on our line. But we're gonna flip her back over. We got her up here in the shallows. It's the only real place we could land her safely. You gotta keep these fish in good health. This fish is older than me and Steve and probably all of you at home combined. This is an old fish. So we wanna make sure she's healthy when she gets out of here. This is what it's all about. America's largest freshwater fish. Okay, point her head back towards the deep. This water's pretty cold. It's in the 50s. Gonna get on her tail. She's already kicking like she wants to go. All right, here she goes. All right. Deep water, big girl. There you go. I've waited my entire life for this very moment right now. Steve, I can't thank you enough, man. My time in Idaho is now some of my most fondest memories. A wild land, great friends, and a deep pleasure knowing my 275-pound Snake River monster is out there somewhere, growing, waiting for my return.